I honestly did not care whether I lived or died. But now, I can't.
You think if he didn't go to death row, would he still be alive?
Wow.
It's hard to say.
Can't leave this straight. You know, I can't go until y'all really know what time.
For nearly 30 years, the public has accepted the same official story about what happened to Tupac. A drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, 6 days in the hospital, and then death. Case closed. That's the version everyone was expected to believe. But now that story is being openly questioned by someone closer to Tupac than almost anyone else. MCC Supreme Shakur, Tupac's actual brother, recently appeared on the Piers Morgan show and suggested that the public has been misled for years. This isn't coming from a random YouTuber pushing wild theories. This is family. Someone who grew up with Tupac knew him personally and is now looking straight into the camera. He speaks calmly but with intensity, carefully choosing his words while implying that much of what people think they know about Tupac's death simply doesn't add up. When Piers asks him about Diddy and his repeated denials over the years, the claims that he had nothing to do with Tupac's death, Ree makes it clear he doesn't accept them, not even close. He openly expresses serious doubts and isn't afraid to say so publicly.
What did he say that day when he called you?
You know, I had my guys with me, Thug Life guys, and we heard what he had to say. He basically said he ain't have nothing to do with my brother's murder.
Ree also explains that this skepticism goes back years. According to him, he told Diddy long ago that the truth always comes out. That conversation reportedly happened in 2008 when Diddy personally called him in an attempt to convince the family of his innocence. Now 17 years later, Ree is once again saying that the real truth will eventually be revealed. This doesn't come across as random speculation. It sounds like someone who knows more than he's willing to fully explain. You can see it in his eyes. There's something deeper there. And think about it. If your brother had passed and you truly believe the official story, would you be going on national television decades later questioning everything? Probably not.
I get the feeling quite strongly that you don't believe Diddy. I don't think you believe a word of it.
Seems like he got a whole bunch of power, like absolute power.
Most people would want closure. They'd want to move on. But Ree is still searching for answers nearly 30 years later. What's especially striking is how careful he is with his language. He isn't yelling about conspiracies or making reckless claims. Instead, he plants doubt deliberately with precision as if he understands exactly what he's doing and why the timing matters. Diddy is currently facing federal charges and his empire is under intense pressure. That tends to be the moment when long silent voices start speaking. No one is claiming Tupac is alive or secretly living somewhere else. But when his own brother starts publicly questioning the narrative that's been accepted for decades, it naturally forces people to ask serious questions. Because if Ree is right, then much of what we think we know about hip-hop history may be wrong. This brings the focus back to 2008. At that time, Diddy was reportedly losing sleep over rumors connecting him to Tupac's death. And instead of ignoring them, he allegedly picked up the phone and called the Shakur family directly. Think about that.
Boy, Puffy called me though. Puffy called me back in the day. He called me, he was like, I just want you to know I ain't have nothing to do with your brothers. You know, I know who you are, but we never met.
People who feel completely unaffected by rumors don't usually reach out to a death victim's family 12 years later to explain themselves. But according to accounts, the street talk had grown loud enough that Diddy felt the need to act. Through radio host Big Boy, a conversation with Ree was arranged. Picture that call. Diddy, likely surrounded by advisors and possibly lawyers, insisting that he had absolutely nothing to do with the shooting, repeatedly swearing his innocence. But Ree wasn't convinced. Not then, not now. His response was simple and memorable. The truth always comes out. For words that carry even more weight today. Fast forward to 2025 and Diddy is facing federal racketeering charges. His properties have been raided. People who never spoke before are now talking. The pressure is closing in. Looking back, that 2008 call appears to have been an attempt at damage control. Diddy may have believed he could smooth things over with the family, maybe even secure public support for his innocence. Instead, it appears to have had the opposite effect. Ree listened, acknowledged the denials, but never truly believed them. And now, 17 years later, he's on television saying that Diddy's version of events doesn't hold up.
We don't talk about things that are nonsense. We don't even entertain nonsense, my brother. So we're not even going to go.
That raises an uncomfortable question. If someone is completely innocent, why feel the need to personally reach out to the victim's family? Many people simply ignore false accusations. But Diddy couldn't? The whispers were growing louder. People were connecting dots, and he seemed determined to get ahead of the narrative. The problem is that once you start making urgent calls to convince people of your innocence, public doubt often increases. And from Ray's perspective, his warning from years ago appears to be playing out. The truth, as he sees it, is finally starting to surface. Now, think about this logically. If those recordings didn't matter, why would federal prosecutors keep them locked away for decades? Why would statements from Keefe D be treated as credible enough to eventually charge him based largely on his own admissions? That's where things start to feel unsettling. Those tapes reportedly sat in evidence lockers for years while Diddy was building his empire, winning awards, giving speeches about peace and unity, and publicly denying any involvement. Every denial, every appearance, all while those 47 mentions remained buried in the background. Now, with Diddy facing federal racketeering charges and his entire operation under investigation, those same recordings suddenly feel far more significant. What once looked like old history now appears relevant again. From a legal perspective, the timing makes sense. Federal prosecutors often rely on older allegations to establish long-term patterns. And if they can argue that Diddy was running an alleged organization, it naturally raises the question of whether alleged conduct from the 1990s could be revisited. The detailed descriptions attributed to Keefe D involving million-dollar bounties and alleged death plots weren't just dramatic stories. They've been publicly discussed as potential allegations that could, at least in theory, reconnect Diddy to one of the biggest unsolved deaths in music history. If those recordings ever make it into a courtroom, Diddy's carefully built narrative of innocence could face serious challenges. And it's worth noting that when federal agents raided Diddy's mansions, they weren't reportedly looking for Tupac-related material. Their focus was on modern allegations tied to racketeering and financial crimes. But investigations don't always unfold as planned. Sometimes the most significant discoveries happen unexpectedly. According to public discussion, agents searching through Diddy's personal files came across documents labeled with a single word that immediately reignited long-standing theories: Cuba. At first glance, that might sound meaningless, but context matters. Tupac's aunt has been living in exile in Cuba since 1984. That fact alone has fueled speculation for decades. Coincidences do happen, but in a federal investigation of this scale, nothing is easily dismissed, especially when it connects to long-standing claims about Tupac potentially escaping after faking his death.
Part of Tupac's legend is that he'd been shot 5 times and survived before that fateful night here in Las Vegas in 1996. And because of that, Tupac's legacy has always been linked to Vegas.
That brings up the stories told by Tupac's former bodyguard, who for years claimed he helped smuggle Tupac out of Las Vegas. According to those accounts, the plan involved switching bodies at the hospital, arranging private flights, and eventually moving Tupac through Barbados before reaching Cuba. Cuba was always described as the final destination, supposedly under the personal protection of Fidel Castro. For years, those claims were dismissed as fantasy. Then, according to accounts surrounding the situation, the bodyguard promised to release claims and later vanished from public view entirely. If Cuban references truly exist in Diddy's private files, people naturally ask why. Some interpret this as circumstantial. Others see it as suggesting awareness of or involvement in monitoring something connected to Tupac. The question keeps coming up: why would Diddy have documentation related to Cuba unless it involves someone or something he felt the need to track? For years, residents in Havana have reported sightings of a man with Tupac's build, moving quietly through neighborhoods, slipping into cafes, and disappearing before anyone could capture a clear image. Grainy footage, eyewitness stories, and persistent rumors painted the picture of a legendary figure living quietly in plain sight. Here's where the theory becomes more disturbing. If Diddy's files contain communications with Cuban contacts, records of international payments, or surveillance-style notes about Tupac's movements, then the discussion shifts dramatically. At that point, it stops being framed as a simple concealment narrative and starts being talked about as something far larger, potentially involving multiple countries. In that framing, the so-called Cuba files are discussed as a possible missing link, something that could suggest Diddy knew Tupac survived and helped maintain one of the biggest deceptions in hip-hop history. And if federal prosecutors ever decide to open those files publicly, the impact could completely reshape what people believe about Tupac's story. That brings the focus back to September of 1996. When people examine the official records from that period, inconsistencies stand out. Take the coroner's report. It's supposed to be precise and definitive. Yet, Tupac's listed height and weight were reportedly incorrect. These are basic physical measurements that medical staff routinely verify. Mistakes can happen, but given Tupac's global fame, many question how such details weren't double-checked, especially with the entire world watching. Then there's another strange detail. The crematorium worker who allegedly handled Tupac's body retired immediately after the case. Not months later, immediately finished the job and left the profession altogether. People naturally question why someone would walk away right after handling the most high-profile case of their career. And finally, there's the shooting itself. It happened on one of the busiest nights Las Vegas had seen right after the Tyson fight on September 7th. The strip was packed with people, vehicles, and cameras. Yet, no clear eyewitness ever emerged who could definitively identify the shooter or the vehicle involved. S.J. Knight, who was sitting next to Tupac during the shooting, has hinted for years that something doesn't add up. In a 2014 interview, he even suggested that the lack of arrests might point to a deeper explanation, implying that Tupac's fate may not be as straightforward as it's been portrayed.
I ain't the nigga killed Tupac, I'm the nigga protecting Tupac. Yeah. But at the same time, bitch-ass Puffy can give him a mother star, and every rat in the world said he didn't want to kill Tupac.
Think about that statement for a moment. Suge was there. He lived through the shooting. And yet over the years, he's repeatedly implied that what the public has been told doesn't fully line up. On their own, each inconsistency might seem random, but together they form a pattern. Incorrect information on official documents, key witnesses disappearing or going silent, no reliable eyewitnesses, medical professionals stepping away immediately after handling the case. Either this was one of the most incompetent investigations in modern history or someone was working very hard to make sure the truth never came out. Now with Diddy facing serious legal trouble and multiple federal investigations, those old questions feel newly relevant. Prosecutors are now describing Bad Boy Records as an alleged organization involving allegations that resemble organized crime more than a music business. As more details emerge, the picture being discussed is no longer just about hit records. It's about control, exploitation, and silence.
That used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice.
Witnesses going quiet, files disappearing. The same pattern seen in the Vegas investigation appearing again decades later. If witnesses can vanish even now with modern protections and federal oversight, it forces people to ask what might have happened back in 1996. And if Tupac did escape purely as a hypothetical, it would have required coordination on an enormous scale. Financial backing, trusted allies, possibly intelligence involvement. The kind of operation that doesn't stay hidden unless everyone involved understands the risks of speaking out. In that framing, the Cubales wouldn't just rewrite hip-hop history. They would suggest something far bigger, something closer to international espionage. And this is where the story pauses, but the questions don't. After nearly 30 years, too many details still don't sit comfortably in place. Maybe the official version explains some things. Maybe it doesn't explain everything. And maybe the truth isn't as simple as we were told. That's why this conversation matters. What do you think? Does the accepted narrative still hold up? Or do these patterns raise questions that deserve closer attention? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them. If you want more deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and stay tuned because some stories don't end when we're told they do.